So when I got to the Valley about 20 years ago, no company was spending nearly this amount on lobbying in Washington. They sort of let Washington do whatever it's doing. Is this smart? And is it effective?
So smart in the sense that it's essential. They can't not play the game because 20 years ago they weren't the biggest companies in the world, and now they are. So this is the position they're in. Effective is a really good question, though, because the days where, like I know a guy who knows a guy and that'll solve your problem, those don't exist anymore. So just throwing money at lobbyists and throwing money at the inside game isn't really the way campaigns work today. If you look on the political side, whether it's Trump on the Republican side or Warren or Buttigieg on the Democratic side, people who get traction are able to really connect with voters as grassroots or social media. And so I think if you're just playing an inside game and you just keep spending more and more on lobbyists, you're going to have very diminishing returns. And just to expect that to work, I think is unrealistic. When
I look at Facebook and they're one of the top spenders, part of that is campaigning for Libra. It doesn't feel like they've had much success there. We spent the last few weeks hearing all this backlash from lawmakers. What should they be doing? How should they be gaining support for this cryptocurrency?
I mean, I think they have to win trust of real people. All of their problems come down to the fact that their users no longer trust them, right? That's what gets politicians worried, is that they think the voters want them to do something about it. So whether it's privacy or antitrust or now Libra, they're all caused by the same thing. And there's fundamentally, like I'm an investor in crypto and I believe in it, but I'm a venture capitalist. I'm supposed to know what this stuff is. Most people really aren't still familiar with they can't separate Bitcoin from the blockchains. But I think what Facebook didn't do is recognize that there's a dearth of understanding of what crypto is generally. And so Libra kind of went out there and people have been confused the entire time.
But they can't get to the people without getting to the lawmakers first, right? Because this thing will never get off the ground.
Well, but they could run a camp. I think to get the lawmakers on board, they've got to get the people on board. The idea that you just start on the inside Washington and you just start with the politicians, I think is a sort of outdated notion at this point. I think Facebook has to be able to convince users, here's why this makes your life better. Here's why this makes your life easier. And if you can do that, then you can start mobilizing those people. And then politicians, look, I spent 15 years working directly in government and politics before I went to VC. They will adapt to whatever position they need to adapt to win the next election. That's one thing you can always bet on. But you've got to be able to move the voters first, and Facebook hasn't done that.
I'm reading right now an interview with the CMO of Clorox about why they continue to advertise on Facebook. There's been no degradation in their engagement or their targeting. If Libra ends up, as an example, if you consider them an advertiser, Facebook will do the same thing, and engagement will work, right? People will be interested.
Yeah. The notion of Libra working long-term to me makes total sense, but they've hit this immediate political roadblock, and they've got to overcome that, because as Deirdre said, if you can't do that, you can't launch the Libra in the first place. And so, there probably is a pretty strong value proposition to Facebook users to having Libra. It makes a lot of sense, but they've got to demonstrate that, and just spending $4.4 million or wherever the number was on lobbyists is not going to cut it.
Would a breakup help them? I mean, in a way, aren't they hurt by the fact that the Facebook general screw-up is connected now to the Facebook Messenger for Kids screw-up is connected to their desire to get this currency thing? I mean, those things aren't necessarily connected. They could break them up and call them something different.
Look, they could break them up, but I think the one thing that Facebook should do is just treat people a little more intelligently, in the sense that Facebook always wants to make this case that, you can share your cat photos and connect with your best friend from the 8th grade, and we'll protect all of your privacy and we'll never monetize your data. It's a company, right? It's a transaction. If you want these things for free, they have to be able to use your data to sell you things. Maybe they could have a product where you pay and you don't have your data. But I think fundamentally, when Facebook kind of treats people a little bit like idiots, people get that. And I think it upsets them. And I think the first thing that they could really do to solve all these problems is just be pretty clear as to sort of what this is all about.
Bradley, I know you work very closely. You work with Uber, Airbnb, when Uber was still private. How are the challenges different for the huge big tech public companies right now in terms of their scrutiny and getting regulators?
Yeah, look, and this is, I invest in seed and Series A companies, we're looking to effectively disrupt an existing industry, and we're figuring out, can we take on this giant in taxi or casinos or hotels or whatever it is? Once you become the giant, the ballgame changes entirely. Now, look, if you're the investor, and I got to Uber at the A, works out really well from an economic standpoint, happy it happens, but you have to anticipate an entirely different world coming at you. And I think, to the point that 20 years ago, these companies weren't talking about Washington and now they are, is good, but I still think it took a lot of them longer than it should have to appreciate the need to take politics seriously, take regulation seriously, take media seriously, and they're paying the price for that.